Welcome back to Rapid Recap. I'm Tim Verghese, joined by Steve Marik. Steve, we heard from Matt Rhule and a couple of players today. Started off the top. Rhule just talked about Jack McCallister, incoming transfer from Washington, leaving the program after just one semester. Rhule offered some insight as to why McCallister made that decision, why Nebraska made that decision. Both sides seems like handled this as well as it could be done. Just seems like change in philosophy, change in strategy from the special teams.
Definitely a change in strategy. Look, when Jack McCallister transferred away from Washington and landed at Nebraska, he was doing so because Washington shifted from a traditional punt scheme to a rugby style punt scheme. So you've seen rugby style punts all over college football these days, and maybe even in the NFL. So that was why he transferred away from Washington and landed at Nebraska in the first place. So what happens when he gets to Nebraska? Uh, a lot more change, especially in the special teams coordinator. Mike Eckler was hired as a special teams coordinator to take over for Ed Foley, and Mike Eckler during his time, his past four seasons at Tennessee, was a rugby style. He had a rugby style punt unit over there with the Volunteers. So that is the shift that Nebraska is going to be making. They're going from the traditional style to the rugby style punting. And Jack McCallister is not a rugby style punter. He is a traditional style punter. It's a tough kind of way to go about things with Jack McCallister and his short time in Lincoln. But as Matt Rhule said, and as you said, Tim, everybody seemed to be very professional about it. And Jack McCallister even was at practice today on Thursday in Lincoln, so he wants to continue working on his game and helping the team out while he's still here. But he will still be entering the transfer portal and playing college football somewhere else in the fall. That was kind of the big thing. We'll talk about the spring game stuff here shortly, Tim. But that was kind of like the big team football type news to come out of Matt Rhule's press conference on Thursday was Nebraska's special teams, especially the punt team, shifting from a traditional style to more of a rugby style. And Matt Rhule said that Nebraska will be getting a rugby style punter sometime in the summer, so that's something to keep an eye on. He said that they already have some names, some plan A and B guys ready to go to be recruited. Tim, what are your thoughts on the shift from a traditional style to a rugby style punt?
It makes sense, and I think on this
Yep.
in this situation, you trust Eckler, and the results he's
Mm-hmm.
had as a special teams coordinator over the last few years, and just trust that he's got a vision for it. It's a tough situation for
Yep.
Nebraska and McAllister, and Nebraska's tried to do as much the right way, do right by the players for the most part, but it's just a tough situation. But credit to McAllister for being understanding and hopping back in the portal and figuring out what's best for him, and again sticking it out at the same time, providing some valuable
Yeah.
guidance and experience to some of the younger special teamers. Yeah, and again, we could see this probably going to be addressed in the summer, but could get addressed here in the spring portal window. Portal opened
Mm-hmm.
on Wednesday, and it's open for 10 days, so we could see Eckler make some phone calls, do some outreach. We could see a punter stop through campus here in the next few days, potentially next few weeks. So something to keep an eye on, something to carry us over into the summer, I guess, in terms of the roster, something that is going to be a bit unknown at least until fall camp at this point.
Yeah, and so a lot of questions, especially on our message board, about like what does that mean for like Campton Cook, who is right now currently the lone punter on the roster right now. And I don't know if Campton Cook is a rugby style punter. I think he's a traditional. I checked out some of his highlights from his high school huddle tape, and yeah, he's just a traditional punter as well. So I don't know what that means for his future at Nebraska. He could of course learn to be he could of course learn to be a rugby style punter, but again, I don't know. I think it's just a better way to go about things to go out and get a guy like that. And like I said earlier, Mike Eckler has some names in his back pocket that the program will be checking out. So
Yeah, no doubt. And then the other big news is we're going to get some football at the Husker games. We're going to get, some padded at least a little scrimmage work. Won't be a lot of the ones. Won't be, I wouldn't expect to see Dylan Raiola or Emmett Johnson or Dane Key or anyone like that in action necessarily in the scrimmage, but Rule said they're going to have some type of scrimmage.
Yeah, so you're right. It's not going to be a lot of the first team guys. It's not even going to be a lot of their backups. It's going to be the guys who are fighting for those last 105 man spots on the 105 man roster, as well as all the other guys behind them who are going to be having to leave the program and play their college football elsewhere if they want to continue playing. And that was a big reason why Matt Rhule wants to do this, is because he has a lot of gratitude towards these players who, a lot of them were told that they were not going to be around or allowed to be on the roster come fall, but they still stuck it out. They still went through mat drills. They still did all this hard stuff that these guys on scholarship and the guys that are firmly cemented in the 105 are doing. They were doing it too, as well as paying for school and all that stuff. So Matt Rhule just wants to do good by those guys and let them show what they can do and put it on tape so other programs can watch it and see if they would like to take a shot at getting those guys in the transfer portal too. So yeah, I mean it's a good idea to try to help out those guys who are going to be potentially looking for a new home and wanting to play some football. So yeah, I mean it's going to provide a little bit more oomph to the Husker days, I think, on April 26th, and the portal closes 25th. I think a day before this scrimmage. So everybody's gonna understand where they stand on the roster, and a lot of the guys are just gonna go play hard and put the pads on and go play some football and maybe catch the eye of some other program somewhere that's still looking to add to their own roster. Tim, what do you think about the whole thing?
Yeah, it makes sense, and it's going to be good for those players potentially. I would imagine most of those guys will have entered the portal or like publicly entered the portal by that point,
Yep.
with the portal closing the day before Husker games. So these guys will still be technically be on the roster, but also in
Mm-hmm.
the portal. Or these are guys potentially fighting for a spot in the 105. Like it's going to be something of like a try. I mean, Rule said up front it's not like a tryout, but I mean
Mm-hmm.
it's going to be something of a try. It feels like it is just going to be something of a tryout at the same time. So, I'm intrigued to see what it looks like. Who we get out there.
Mm-hmm.
And more than anything, it's going to be good to see some like actual football on April 26th, because we were not going to get actual football on April 26th up until Rule made this decision.
Yeah, so maybe that helps, you know, um, convince some fans to come on out to Memorial Stadium and enjoy the whole day, which has other events in it as well. So yeah, I mean, he also did say that there will be some like second team type guys who have the potential to, maybe if they play well and they want to show they have one last shot in the spring to show that they are a one. There's going to be some of those guys too. I don't think a whole heck of a lot of them, but there will be some guys putting on the pads and showing the coaches like, hey, I can be a first team guy. I deserve some game snaps come fall. So yeah, I mean, I think this is a good idea for Rule and the program to kind of just show respect to some of the guys who stuck it out and give them an opportunity to maybe potentially find another landing spot somewhere.
No doubt. And Rule touched on it today, but it's worth mentioning. A lot of these guys you're going to see on Saturday, on April 26th, working there. A lot of these guys that are going to be entering the portal here in the next few days, in the
Mm-hmm.
spring portal window. These are guys that aren't potentially aren't on scholarship, and
Mm-hmm.
even if they are, more than likely aren't getting NIL. Like these are guys that are truly in it for the love of the game, for all of that. Like truly just grinding it out with guys that are making money, guys that are kind of pretty much set. The Dane Keys and the Dylan Wright, where like, hey, 2-3 years from now, these guys are going to play in the NFL. You've got
Mm-hmm.
guys at the other end of the roster that are fully in school and paying their way through college and not getting any NIL deals and not really even having like a stipend necessarily, that some of these guys on scholarship have, and they deserve an opportunity to play. It sucks that they're not going to get grandfathered in. It sucks that Nebraska has to make these tough decisions into through the spring and summer, and get down to the 105 limit before the fall, but that's unfortunately the reality of college football. So good on Rule, good on the staff for finding something for these guys and giving them an opportunity to suit up Memorial Stadium for the last time and probably the
Yes.
last time, and also give them an opportunity to put something on tape and send out some film to some colleges, because yeah, these guys deserve to find homes, but it's so tough right now with everyone trying to cut down rosters. trying to balance spring practice. It's tough. It's really tough on some of these kids, and I'm glad they're getting this opportunity.
Yep. And we did see, we don't have to touch on it too much, Tim, but we did see two players today who spoke. Keona Davis, who again is a massive human being, and then Justin Evans, who kind of is sounding like he's solidifying his spot as the starting center going in. And he said a lot of good things about how he was allowed and kind of it's kind of okay to be a quiet guy as a starting left guard. But that can't happen when you're a starting center. And he's learned that now that he's playing the center, as the quarterback of the offensive line, he needs to be a lot more vocal. And he was taking a lot of lessons from Ben Scott, the starting center from past 2 seasons here at Nebraska. So good stuff from Justin Evans, who again is just, he's not the tallest guy in the world, but sometimes those shorter, lower built guys, thick guys are really hard to block and get under, and low man wins in football. So I was just kind of struck by that when I was watching him talk. It kind of, him playing center, I think, helps him come out of the shell, and we started to see a little bit more of his personality. And then Keona Davis, I mean, he said he came to Nebraska at 245 pounds, and he's weighing 270 right now at 6'5". The guy just looks like an animal, and there's so much potential in that guy. So, Nebraska's defensive line has some real dude-looking guys on the D line in that unit. So, what were your thoughts on Keona Davis and Justin Evans?
Yeah, I thought Justin, the thing was that you could see his confidence grow. Just this was the
Yep.
first time I think we've
Mm-hmm.
talked to him or
Yeah.
he's talked to him for the podium. You could see his confidence grow as he was speaking and as he started
Mm-hmm.
getting comfortable answering some questions. Keon is another one that's pretty quiet, but you could also see,
Mm-hmm.
like he's growing in confidence, stepping up into a bigger role. I think the defensive transition was obviously, rough there for a bit in December, but the staff, now that it's settled,
Mm-hmm.
seems like it's gone pretty seamlessly when you zoom out a little bit in terms of transitioning from the Tony White defense to the John Butler defense. Defensive line led by Terrence Knighton to now led by Terry Braden. These guys seem comfortable. And that's talking to all these defensive linemen. They all seem comfortable, and it's good to see. Good to hear from both of those guys. I did think just physically, yeah, Keona looks completely different than he did in the fall, and he looked pretty big in the fall. So that's
Yeah.
pretty telling about where he's at right now. We also spoke to Marques Watson-Trent in the hallway before we get out of here. Just want to touch on him real quick. Talked about his transition coming in. Talked about how just kind of cited that when he played with Georgia Southern a couple of years ago, that last year of the Scott Frost era, that environment kind of is what drew him to Nebraska initially. Got him on campus. Said he met with Rhule. Rhule laid out expectations. Was pretty upfront and transparent about what the deal is. Like he'd be coming in expected to be a leader, expected to contribute in that linebacker room, and he's pretty excited about that defense. He talked about just the work that Rob Dvorak has done to get those guys ready. His optimism about guys like Vincent Shavers. He talked about Vincent Shavers a good bit. So kept kind of mentioning when talking about the linebacker room. So you can tell he's excited about his fellow running mate in that linebacker room. Talked about Javen Wright, and then behind those guys, talked a little bit about Jacob Bauer. Thinks
Yeah.
Gage Stenger is going to have a bit of a role in that linebacker room as well. So yeah, Rhule touched on it. Butler touched on it on last week or this on Tuesday, saying Nebraska feels they've got like three deep at linebacker right now. Definitely feels like it.
Yeah. And let's just touch on Bauer a little bit. So 6'1", 220-pounder from California. He came to the program as a walk-on, Tim. And I have a quote here from Matt Rhule that kind of caught my attention. And so this is what Matt Rhule said about Jacob Bauer, the walk-on linebacker. He said, quote, "He's not just in the 105. He might be in the starting lineup / some of the packages will do." So Jacob Bauer over the past 2 seasons, especially last year that I can remember, John Bullock said Jacob Bauer's name multiple times when we asked like who else was impressing in the linebacker room. Other players have mentioned Jacob Bauer. Assistant coaches have mentioned Jacob Bauer, but we just haven't really seen a lot of him on game days. But you know, he's got to be one to keep an eye on now, just considering what Matt Rhule said about him. And he's just an interesting guy. He's a big rugby player. Back when he was in high school in California, he was one of the top guys in kind of like the high school division. I don't know how they do it in rugby, but he's certainly somebody to keep an eye on now as somebody who has kind of stayed in the shadows and kept his head down and kept working and didn't care about his walk on status. because in the new college football landscape with the 105 roster limits, doesn't really matter if you're a walk on or a scholarship guy. It doesn't really matter anymore. If you're on the roster, you're on the roster and you can play. So a lot of people in Nebraska's program certainly think that Jacob Bauer, a young linebacker from California, can play.
No doubt. And he's a guy definitely keeping an eye on. I think stash away this fall as someone we might see on special. We're probably going to see on special teams for
Special
sure, but
teams, yeah.
expect to see him potentially in the rotation defensively. Again, it's early, but feels like one of those like developmental special projects where, 2, 3 years from now, we're like, oh, Jacob Bauer's like playing a lot of linebacker minutes.
Yeah, yeah, he could turn into like a maybe like a Luke Reimer down the line, something like that. I know Luke kind of burst on the scene early in his career, but just sort of that player, that tough, hard nosed, do everything right kind of guy. So yeah, Nebraska's program has a lot of those, obviously, and yeah, I'm going to be keeping my eye on Jacob Bauer for sure.
No doubt. Well, that'll probably do it for us. We'll be back. We should be back at open practice next Tuesday, so stay tuned for that. We'll have sights and sounds from that. We'll have a rapid recap from that, and we'll have press conference videos, of course. Be sure to tune into the press conference videos from today. Matt Rhule spoke extensively about the plan for Husker games, talked about Jack McCallister a little bit, and touched on other team things, the team's progress at this point through spring. So be sure to check that out. Be sure to check out our work over at InsideNebraska.com. We've got recruiting updates from last weekend, recruiting updates winding up to the Husker games next week. Nebraska will be hosting some top targets in town that weekend, and so much more over at InsideNebraska.com. So stay tuned for all of that. We'll be back next week.